Hey, well, tonight I'm angry because we seem to have lost our institutions. Institutions that we've relied upon for decades to be reasonable. Even if they had a point of view, we could at least rely upon them to report the news, to report on the issues of the day. And this recent news that NPR is refusing to report on the Hunter Biden news is outrageous. This is a publicly funded entity. This is the notice on Twitter as to NPR's position on this Hunter Biden story. They say, and I quote, "We don't want to waste our time on stories that are not really stories, and we don't want to waste the listeners' and readers' time on stories that are just pure distractions." This is outrageous. This is an entity that is funded by all of us, conservatives and liberals alike. And we've known for many years that NPR had a liberal bent. So what? Many of the sources that I get news from have a liberal bent. Some have a conservative perspective, some are liberal, some are libertarian, some are anarchist. I get my news from a wide variety of sources, but NPR is an entity that has to be somewhat fair and reasonable by virtue of the fact that we are the ones funding it. They have lost their moral imperative. They don't deserve our funding. They've taken sides. Who else? Well, let's look at this entity. This is the New England Journal of Medicine, one of the most highly regarded medical journals in the world. And they have also come out on October the 8th taking sides, writing an editorial against President Trump. Now, you may say whatever you wish about the nation's preparedness, but certainly the lack of preparedness is not entirely at our political leadership's doorstep. Surely the medical industry, the medical profession, the National Institutes of Health, the CDC, don't they bear a greater responsibility for lack of preparedness than the President of the United States? I believe that they do. And yet here you have a, so to speak, impartial medical journal coming out taking sides. We don't even have to mention the media, the social networks, the intelligence community. The forces that are aligned against our current president are formidable, to say the least. And the problem is that they encompass some of our public institutions. These public institutions like NPR, the major media networks, whether it's television or print, they are jeopardizing their entire future. There's no way that they're going to be able to sustain themselves. They've shown themselves to be so partisan that they've lost their ability to be fair. Why should anybody trust any news from these sources anymore? How come these institutions have been willing to throw everything up into the wind just to get rid of one guy, a president who, no matter what, is not going to be president for more than 8 years, and yet these institutions have sacrificed their decades-old credibility on the altar of trying to get him out of office? How do we tolerate that? How do we tolerate publicly funded institutions taking sides, refusing to report on news stories? There may be nothing to this Hunter Biden story. It certainly appears that there is a lot to it, but to not report on the story at all, for these institutions to sacrifice the credibility and good name that they've spent decades building up for such a transient, temporary goal, crazy, outrageous, and stupid, and they don't deserve to continue. Please, let's wake up.